I'll be honest, I've been kind of, I don't know, paranoid, fearful about AI. I mean, AI is really cool, but it kind of freaks me out when it comes to indie games. Is it going to destroy the indie game industry? Is it going to destroy the game industry as a whole? Well, I can't think of a better person to ask this question to than the creator of Bioshock, Ken Levine. And by the way, he's working on his next game, Judas, and it's taken 10 years to make. Ton of innovation in his games. And so I posed the question to Ken, is it going to destroy the game industry? And I was really, really encouraged, and I also wasn't. It's a very fascinating conversation. And by the way, if you want to take just a small indie demo and turn it into an actual paycheck, I teach how to do that in a free webinar below. It helps you get into the game industry and make money. It's what I've done in the past, so I'm just going to teach you what I've done. It's totally free. Okay, let's jump into the conversation.
Boy, I can see this video shopping in 5 years. Ken Levine, predicts everything incorrectly. I'm just going off my limited knowledge I have and
I got you.
My experience. So you can train it on, say, Shakespeare's writing, right? And you can ask it any question about Shakespeare's writing. The problem with creation is we don't know how it happens, right? So you can train on Shakespeare's writing, but you can't train it on Shakespeare, the person, right? Because what is I'm a guy who believes sort of in a very materialistic view of the universe. And I believe our personality is a function of our the molecules that make our body and the molecules that we're interacting with in the world, including other people, right? Mm-hmm. We don't know what causes creation or how it gets created. And we may be very similar to large language models. We may just be soaking everything up and using all that stuff to complete our own sentences, right? Because we're trained on the stuff around us. Like language, how do we learn language? We learn it from hearing mommy and daddy talk, right, when we're babies. But we don't know how it's made. So how do you write a new Shakespeare play without knowing Shakespeare? And how do you know Shakespeare, right? It's very hard to, because he's no longer here, and we don't even know what made that shit come out of his head. And if all those experiences you have probably help form it, most writers say, and I think it's fairly true, I'd feel this way, is that especially at some point in your script, it starts writing itself, and you get ideas, and you're like, where did that come from? And that's the part of creation that it has no insight into. Now, maybe it can develop that, but right now I'm not seeing it. Now, for things like still images, it's pretty powerful because it can, that's a single moment in time. It doesn't have those, continuity issues that I talked about before. But in the end of the day, if you try to then say, well, I really want it more like Kubrickian or more this, it's not really, it tries. So I've yet to find a creative use for it that I've yet to find a creative use for it.
In its current state, it can't comprehend the creator. It can comprehend the created, but it can't comprehend the creator. It's almost like saying it can't comprehend its God. Like the thing that created it, it just cannot get into that dimension no matter how hard it tries.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, because we can't, because it's not written down anywhere. Now, maybe if there's a world where, and I won't go too into it, but there's a concept in the game, Judas, where characters can be reprinted, meaning from a map of your molecular data, you can be born again, essentially. They track all your data at all times in the sort of storage device. And theoretically, if you are just your molecules, right, it would make a replica of you at that time with all the memories, all the emotions, all your flaws, all your strengths intact. But it's still a black box. Like, it doesn't really know. It's just saying, here's a map. Let's just recreate the map using very advanced 3D organic printing. So it's sort of drawing on things we already have now, but we don't really have a good way to map us down to the, atomic level. And there are parts of our body we understand how they work, mostly like the heart, and there are parts of our body which we're completely baffled by, like our brain, mostly baffled by. We have very high level guesses. So what makes the creation process? Well, it's probably chemicals of some kind, right? Because that's what we are, and electricity and all that other stuff, but we don't know how to map it. So how do you create it without mapping it? I'm not sure, but I'm happy to be proven wrong.
Man, that's so interesting. So It's interesting what you said about in Judas you could be reprinted, and the question is like if I was to disintegrate you, and then but I knew every integral piece of data about you, down to the DNA, down to the chemical structure, and I reprinted you, would you still be Ken? I don't think you would be. I think you'd be a duplicate. You would not be you. It's not like you would suddenly consciously manifest in that new 3D printed body.
Well,
what do you think?
Well, I don't know. Like, it depends. If there's a metaphysical element, then no. Like, but I'm not a metaphysical guy, right? So
Right.
we can separate the fiction of Judas, which I won't get into whether there's a metaphysical element or not. But
Right.
Sort of, if you just viewed it in an entirely material way. And again, remember, I was a drama major, so last chemistry class I almost failed was in 1982 or something, 83. But from my thinking about it, from conversations about it, if you are a function of your material, and all your personality and all your hopes and all your dreams and all your memories were in your chemicals, and you could take a snapshot of you, like, wouldn't you be you? I mean, a clone is just going from DNA, right, and growing from DNA, which is starting from the beginning, essentially. So you wouldn't have all those things. You'd be a baby, etc., and you wouldn't have anything that happened in your life. You would just be the function of your DNA.
Yeah.
But DNA is code too, right? So life. The more we learn about the universe, leaving aside things like quantum mechanics, the more it seems that we are we are a function of some kind of programming. Like DNA is literally programming.
By the way, if you're like me and you always dreamt of making an indie game as a full-time job, I have a free webinar below that goes into exactly how to make six figures with just a demo. I was just like you for years. I thought I had to make a game in its entirety before getting a paycheck, but there's actually 3 ways to make 6 figures before even finishing your game. I've done this multiple times. So check it out below if you do want to go full-time indie. And thanks for watching.